Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really special. We're actually going to pull back the curtain on one of the automotive world's best-kept secrets. We're looking at the birth of the world's very first true luxury 4x4, the iconic Range Rover. But as you're going to see, this wasn't just a normal car launch. It was completely shrouded in mystery, decoy names, and these crazy, clandestine desert tests. So buckle up, because we are going deep into the archives.
Okay, picture this for a second. You're walking down the street in the late 1960s, and you spot a vehicle unlike anything you've ever laid eyes on. It's got the massive size and stance of a really rugged off-roader, but it's got the sleek, modern lines of an upscale estate car. You walk right up to the hood to check the badge, expecting, a familiar brand. But instead, you just see 5 letters. V-E-L-A-R. Velar. You'd be totally baffled, right? Was this some new startup? A secret prototype? Well, as it turns out, that confusion was exactly what the engineers were hoping for.
So the name Velar was actually this brilliant, intentional decoy. It was dreamt up by an engineer named Mike Dunn, and he cleverly mashed up letters from existing Alphys and Rover badges just to throw off nosy onlookers. But it had this deeper hidden meaning too. It comes from the Italian and Latin word velare, which literally means to veil or to cover. And get this, to register these secret pre-production cars and keep the press completely in the dark, they even set up a totally fake shell company called the Velar Motor Company. The true identity of this massive project was literally hidden in plain sight.
Section 1. A gap in the market.
Now, to understand why Rover went to such wild extremes to hide this thing, we actually have to rewind all the way back to 1951. Rover realized they needed a vehicle with the comfort of a standard passenger car, but the rugged go-anywhere capability of a Land Rover. They called it the Road Rover. They built a few prototypes, but, well, the project totally stalled out. It got shelved mainly because the engines back then just didn't have the guts to move such a heavy vehicle. Fast forward to 1965, a Rover research executive, Graham Bannock, takes a trip to the U.S. and notices this huge boom in the leisure 4x4 market, stuff like the Jeep Wagoneer and Ford Bronco. Americans were using 4x4s for everyday driving and weekend fun, not just for plowing fields. The real game changer, though, hit when Rover finally got the rights to this lightweight, all-alloy 3.5-liter Buick V8 engine. Suddenly, they had the powerhouse they needed, and by 1967, the project was officially back on.
Section 2. Engineering a 4x4 revolution. Let's dive right into how they actually pulled this off.
So, with the green light given and that V8 engine secured, the team started working on what they internally called the 100-inch station wagon. This massive job fell to 2 absolute legends in Rover engineering, Charles Spencer King and Gordon Bashford. Spen King and his 20-person team weren't just slapping together a new model. They were literally inventing a whole new category of car. They worked under this super strict set of rules called the 4-in-1 car ethos. Basically, this one single vehicle had to do 4 completely different things all at once. It needed the luxury of a premium saloon, the high-speed performance of a fast sports car, the massive cargo space of an estate, and the unstoppable cross-country agility of a traditional Land Rover. Talk about a tall order.
The engineering leap here was just staggering. Think about traditional 1960s 4x4s. They were essentially tractors. Utilitarian tools with bone-rattling leaf springs, incredibly basic drum brakes, and super heavy steel bodies. The 100-inch station wagon threw that entire rulebook out the window. To give it smooth on-road manners without ruining its off-road flex, they went with long-travel coil springs. And to actually stop a heavy vehicle going that fast with a V8, they slapped on 4-wheel disc brakes, which was incredibly rare back then. They also dropped in a totally revolutionary permanent 4-wheel drive system with a lockable center differential, and wrapped the whole shebang in lightweight aluminum panels to keep the pounds off. It was, without a doubt, a total engineering revolution.
Section 3. The Top Secret Velar.
All right, so with the core engineering finally locked in, it was time to take all this brilliant theory and actually put it into the dirt. And that brings us to the physical prototypes. 26. That is exactly how many pre-production models were built in 1969 on a brand new line at the Solihull factory. They slapped London license plates on them, badged them with that fake Velar name we talked about earlier, and then the engineering department just pushed these 26 vehicles to the absolute limit, all while keeping the general public completely clueless about what was actually coming down the pipeline.
The trials these early Velar prototypes went through were absolutely brutal. For instance, late in 1969, they sent 2 Velars on this grueling double crossing of the Sahara Desert. We're talking Algeria, Niger, Morocco. This whole expedition was actually caught on tape by a Pathé news crew for a film called Sahara South, and it was super crucial because it instantly showed them they needed to beef up the dust ceiling, among other things. But here's my favorite part. Some of these early test mules lived crazy lives long after the trials ended. The oldest surviving prototype in the world, Chassis 100/6, actually ended up totally dismantled, with its parts scattered across 3 different farms in North Devon. Luckily, a dedicated enthusiast managed to track it down and painstakingly rebuild it piece by piece in the 1990s. How wild is that?
Section 4. The 1970 Cornwall launch. Let's see how this all comes together.
After years of top-secret development, desert crossings, and massive engineering breakthroughs, it was finally time to lift the veil. The world was about to officially meet the Range Rover. What you're looking at here is an authentic piece of history. It's the actual route map they handed out to the media during the press launch. So on June 17, 1970, journalists all gathered at the Moodin Hotel down in Cornwall. Rover sent them out on this really demanding route. They did high-speed runs at Sanibel Airfield and then these hardcore cross-country trails in the Blue Hills. The whole point was to prove to the press that this 4-in-1 idea wasn't just some slick marketing gimmick. It was real. And man, the press response was absolutely ecstatic. These were the original launch body colors available in 1970, and they featured iconic names like Tuscan Blue, Maasai Red, Bahama Gold, and Lincoln Green. From the outside, the exterior was incredibly sleek and deeply modern. But inside, well, despite its premium price tag, the early Range Rover really held on to those utility roots. The cabin barely had any soundproofing, the boot floors were just bare metal, and it had this Palomino PVC vinyl trim. Why so basic? Because it was literally designed so that country gentlemen could grab a hose and easily wash out all the mud and debris after a long weekend out in the fields.
Section 5. An instant global icon.
The reaction after that Cornwall launch was completely unprecedented. Rover was really just aiming for a small niche market, but they ended up capturing the imagination of the entire planet, birthing a global icon overnight. The demand was so explosive that a massive black market actually popped up, with buyers willing to pay way over the asking price just to jump the lengthy factory waiting list. And its visual appeal? Undeniable. In 1971, the Range Rover actually became the very first vehicle ever to be exhibited at the world-famous Louvre Museum in Paris, celebrated as an exemplary work of industrial design. But here's the absolute kicker. Head engineer Sven King always maintained that they barely did any actual styling at all. He claimed the design literally just evolved naturally as they shaped the metal to cover the mechanics and optimize space. Form truly followed function, and the result was a total accidental masterpiece.
Now don't let the fancy museum exhibits fool you for a second. The Range Rover never forgot its rugged Land Rover DNA. Throughout the 70s, it proved its worth in some of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. In 1972, a British Army team drove Range Rovers from Alaska to Argentina, becoming the first vehicles ever to successfully cross the dense, trackless jungle of the Darien Gap. It took them 99 days to cover just 250 miles. It went on to complete an epic 7,500-mile Sahara crossing in '74, won its class in the grueling 30,000-kilometer London-Sydney Marathon in '77, and then just took the outright victory in the very first Paris-Dakar rally in '79. It was a luxury vehicle that could quite literally conquer the Earth.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've just traced the Range Rover from a stalled 1950s concept, through those top-secret desert tests hidden behind the Velar decoy, all the way to his crowning as a museum-worthy, world-conquering icon. It completely shattered the boundary between high society luxury and raw utilitarian grit. So how did a vehicle whose shape was basically born out of pure engineering necessity rather than a designer's pen go on to define the entire luxury SUV segment for over 50 years? It's a pretty fascinating question, and a real testament to the sheer brilliance of the people who created it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope you enjoyed unraveling the Velar mystery as much as I did. Catch you next time.